What if I told you that most people don't miss happiness because it's rare, they miss it because they're not paying attention? Think about it for a second. The small moments, the quiet details, the emotions that pass through us every single day, they're right there, but we're scrolling past life like it's just another feed. And that right there is the core problem this book exposes. Welcome to Books Bell. Today, we're diving deep into the book The Art of Noticing, a powerful and eye-opening work written by Rob Walker. In this video, we're not just summarizing a book, we're unpacking a mindset. We're going to learn how noticing small things can completely change how you experience life, how creativity actually works in the real world, why awareness is a skill you can train, and how slowing down mentally can make you sharper, calmer, and honestly, more alive. So if you feel like life is rushing by, like days blur together, or like you're always busy but rarely present, this one's for you. The book, The Art of Noticing, is built around a simple but powerful idea. Attention is not automatic anymore. It's intentional. In today's world, our attention is constantly hijacked. Notifications, deadlines, news cycles, social media, pressure to hustle, all of it pulls us outward. Rob Walker doesn't argue that technology is evil or that modern life is broken beyond repair. Instead, he points out something more subtle and more dangerous. We've stopped noticing. And when you stop noticing, life becomes background noise. One of the strongest messages of this book is that noticing is a practice, not a personality trait. Some people think, oh, I'm just not the observant type, or I'm not creative like that. The book shuts that excuse down real fast. According to Walker, noticing is a muscle. If you don't use it, it gets weak. If you train it, it gets stronger. And the crazy part is, you don't need talent, intelligence, or special tools. You just need intention. The author introduces the idea that creativity doesn't start with big ideas. It starts with small observations. A crack in the sidewalk, a pattern in human behavior, a feeling you usually ignore. Most people walk past these things on autopilot, but the people who create meaningful work, artists, writers, thinkers, entrepreneurs, they pause, they look twice, they notice. And let's be real for a moment. In American culture especially, speed is glorified. Faster results, faster growth, faster content, faster success. If you're not moving fast, you feel like you're falling behind. This book flips that mindset on its head and basically says, slow down, or you'll miss everything that actually matters. And no, slowing down doesn't mean quitting life or becoming lazy. It means being present while you move. One of the most powerful sections of this book explores how distraction has become our default mode. We wake up and check our phones. We eat while watching screens. We talk while half listening. We live in fragments. The book explains that when your attention is constantly divided, your experience of life becomes shallow. You're technically alive, but you're not fully here. That's a hard truth, but it's also freeing, because it means you can change it. Rob Walker introduces simple but effective noticing exercises throughout the book. These aren't complicated meditation rituals or spiritual practices that require hours of silence. They're everyday actions. Paying attention to how a place makes you feel, observing how people interact without judging them, noticing your own reactions instead of suppressing them. These exercises help you reconnect with reality, not some abstract idea of reality, but the one you're actually living in. A major insight from the book is that noticing increases meaning. Life doesn't magically become more exciting, you just become more aware of what's already there. The taste of coffee, the sound of a city at night, the way emotions rise and fall. When you start noticing, ordinary moments stop feeling empty, they start feeling rich. And honestly, that's a game changer. The book also makes a strong connection between noticing and emotional intelligence. When you don't notice your emotions, they control you. When you do notice them, they inform you. Instead of reacting on impulse, you start responding with clarity. You realize that feelings aren't commands, they're signals. This awareness creates space, and in that space, you gain freedom. Another powerful idea in the book The Art of Noticing is that attention shapes reality. What you focus on grows. If you constantly notice what's wrong, life feels heavy. If you only notice problems, the world feels hostile. But when you train yourself to notice beauty, patterns, effort, and growth, even in small doses, your experience of life changes. Not because reality changed, but because your lens did. The author also talks about how modern productivity culture often kills noticing. We're trained to measure value in output, not awareness. If something doesn't produce results, we think it's a waste of time. But noticing doesn't always produce immediate outcomes, and that's exactly why it's valuable. It feeds creativity. It deepens understanding. It keeps you human in a system that constantly tries to turn you into a machine. One thing that really stands out in this book is how practical it is. It doesn't romanticize mindfulness or awareness. It acknowledges resistance. It acknowledges boredom. It acknowledges that slowing down feels uncomfortable at first. When you stop distracting yourself, you start noticing your own thoughts, and that can be messy. But the book encourages you to stay with it. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. Rob Walker also emphasizes that noticing is deeply personal. There's no right or wrong way to do it. What matters is curiosity. When you approach life with curiosity instead of judgment, everything shifts. You stop labeling experiences as good or bad immediately. You start asking questions, and curiosity keeps your mind flexible, open, and alive. The book also touches on how noticing improves relationships. When you actually pay attention to people, their tone, their pauses, their emotions, communication becomes real again. You stop listening just to reply. You start listening to understand. And in a world where everyone wants to be heard, being someone who truly notices others is rare and powerful. Another important theme is that noticing brings you back to yourself. When you're constantly consuming information, opinions, and expectations from outside, you lose touch with your inner signals. The book gently guides you back inward, not in a selfish way, but in a grounded, honest way. When you notice your own values, limits, and desires, you make better choices. You stop living on autopilot. The author also challenges the idea that life has to be dramatic to be meaningful. We've been conditioned by movies and social media to expect constant excitement, but real life isn't a highlight reel, it's a flow of moments. And when you learn to notice those moments, even the quiet ones, life stops feeling empty. Throughout the book, there's a recurring message that attention is an act of care. What you notice is what you care about. And when you start noticing your own life, you're basically telling yourself, this matters. That alone can shift your self-worth in a deep way. One of the underrated benefits of noticing, according to the book, is clarity. When you slow down your attention, your thinking becomes sharper. You see patterns you used to miss. You recognize habits that don't serve you anymore. You catch yourself before repeating the same mistakes. That's not luck, that's awareness. The book also addresses resistance directly. Most people don't avoid noticing because they're lazy. They avoid it because it feels vulnerable. When you notice, you feel more, and feeling more can be uncomfortable. But avoiding discomfort comes at a cost, numbness, and numbness is far more dangerous than discomfort. As the book progresses, it becomes clear that noticing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to something you already had as a child, natural curiosity. Kids notice everything. Adults filter everything. This book helps remove those filters one layer at a time. Toward the end, the author reinforces that noticing isn't a one-time realization, it's a daily choice. Some days you'll be present, some days you'll drift. That's normal. What matters is coming back again and again, because every time you notice, you reclaim a piece of your life. In a world obsessed with more money, more success, more content, this book quietly reminds us that depth matters more than volume. You don't need more experiences, you need deeper experiences, and depth comes from attention. So the real question this book leaves you with is simple but powerful. What are you not noticing in your own life right now? The answer might change everything. And here's the truth. Once you start noticing, you can't fully go back. Life feels sharper, richer,